guys, welcome back to the Tactical Edge. This is episode 4. We're really excited to be here today, and we've got some great feedback on the past podcast episodes and all of our past videos. We appreciate all of the support. We're glad that you're tuning in and enjoying it. Please leave some more comments down below. We'd love to hear your feedback about this episode. But today we have Dave Joslin with us, who's a combat medic. He's going to be diving into some of the stories that he's had in combat, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to be going over the Agilite Sub Zero that's dropping soon. So we're going to talk a little more about that, and then we also are going to check out some comments down below that you guys have dropped down there, and we're going to deep dive into those and answer a few questions. So hopefully you're excited. Hopefully you are excited as I am to start this episode, and we're going to get into it. Guys, I'm going to hop in here real quick. Just want to let you know Black Friday is coming up, of course, very soon, and we are going to run a ton of deals. First things first, you need to go to our website and sign up to our newsletter to be the first to know about these deals. We're going to be sending out at least weekly emails letting you know exactly what's going to be on sale, but that's going to include all Agilite gear is going to be on sale, all of our plates, all the helmets on our website. We even are going to have probably pepper gel on sale. So make sure you check out the website and be the first to know by signing up to the newsletter. And yeah, we can't wait to see you there. Now back to the video. All right, so we're back with another podcast. Today we have Dave Joslin joining us. New face in the podcast. This is actually our first podcast guest. So thanks for coming on, Dave. And Patrick here is going to...
Thanks for having me,
Yeah, of course. Going to read your bio and...
Yeah, so Dave, you're Army combat medic, retired at the rank of Sergeant First Class after 20 years of service. Deployments include Iraq and Afghanistan. Your specialized training includes Army Mountain Warfare School, Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine's Hyperbaric Training Program, and the Department of Homeland Security's Counter Narcotics and Terrorist Operations Medical Support SWAT Medic Program. And your major awards include Combat Medic Badge, Bronze Star Medal, Air Medal, and Meritorious Service Medal. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us. Now, I know your nickname's Doc.
Yeah.
So, did you give yourself that name or did somebody else?
No, there's, so in Army medicine, there's kind of two lines of medicine. You have clinical medics that kind of ride out in the hospital, and then you have field medics that are assigned to frontline units, infantry, cavalry, and so forth. And once medics are organic or assigned to one of those types of units, once they've kind of proven themselves, when you're accepted because you're infantrymen, the men who you're there to provide assistance to. When they start calling you doc, you know that you have kind of earned your keep and are part of the team.
So that was so they started calling you that, and that kind of stuck.
Yeah, it was my first infantry assignment was with 1st Battalion, 6th Infantry Regiment in Baumholder, Germany. My first tasking with them, I was the scout platoon medic, so our recce platoon. I was their medic, and that's kind of an interesting first assignment for a new line medic, although I'd been a medic for 2 years at a trauma center before. I'd never actually cut my teeth with an infantry unit, so I got assigned to because of my training and experience in the trauma center, and because of the role that a reconnaissance platoon has, kind of being far forward, independent, kind of forward the forward line of troops. In my background, they pushed me out with those guys, feeling that clinically I could handle that, and it took a month or two of them kind of busting my chops and testing me to get comfortable with me. And after our first kind of field maneuver, we came home, and I was kind of just referred to as Doc from almost that point forward for the rest of my life.
Gotcha. When did you know you wanted to be combat medic? What kind of drove you that way, or what?
So when I first joined the military, I joined the reserves kind of for college money. And then when I was in training in Fort Sam Houston, Texas, going through the basic combat medic course or healthcare specialist course, I realized I'd made a huge mistake. I didn't want to do that part-time. I wanted to do it full-time. It is this political battle between the reserves and active duty components. I went and saw our reserve component liaison and said, hey, I want to switch and go active duty. And they were like, no, we can't do that. Sorry. And really kind of at that point in time, it was peacetime. This was back in 1993, 1994. It came down to funding. The reserve component was paying for my training, and I had a slot specifically with the reserve unit. So they said, no, the reserve unit paid for your training, and you're going to write it out with them. So then almost immediately upon return from active duty training back to my reserve unit, I started petitioning to go on active duty, and denied. And then finally, my wife and I had moved from St. Louis to Florida after the birth of our daughter. And so I had to find a new reserve unit there. And I kind of played the card right that commander, he had no investment in me. I was just a transfer from another unit. And so I actually signed into that unit and signed out of that unit in the same drill weekend. He asked me a couple questions, why are you even here? I said, well, someone has to release me to active duty, right? And he asked me, why should I do this? I've got no reason to do it. I said, well, you have no reason to keep me either. And the reason I want to go on active duty is to take care of my family. I have this young daughter now, and I want to provide some opportunity for her. And I was really kind of disenchanted with my first career in banking, and it's probably its own episode. So when he heard that I was really wanted to just provide for my family, he said that was the right answer, and he signed off on my conditional release to active duty. And that next week I was at MEPS in Miami and getting a contract to go on active duty. And 20 days later I signed into active duty at Fort Sam Houston at the Trauma Center at Brooke Army Medical Center.
So let me ask you, you don't have any health care or medical experience before going into?
I was a lifeguard at 16. I was a reserve. It took me 6.5 years to get on active duty. So I had been an EMT. I did some ambulance time with a civilian ambulance company outside of St. Louis.
Gotcha.
Actually wore body armor for a civilian company before I did for the Army. My first venue as a rookie medic was in East St. Louis, Washington Park, that beautiful little gem of a place outside of St. Louis. Beautiful people. Very happy to see medics too when they show up, because our uniform was blue station pants, a white shirt, and a badge. So people that were not full faculties, flying on PCP or drunk, whatever, they immediately thought we were cops.
Wow.
So I'd been a medic for 6 years. I'd worked
Gotcha.
part-time as a medic and done a couple of things, but it really wasn't, I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. I just wasn't, the stars didn't line up for me yet to be able to do that full-time until the spring of 2000, actually.
Oh, nice.
When did you first see combat? What was your first? How long were you in, and when did you see that first?
Yeah, so I went on
Deployment.
active duty April of 2000. I worked at the Trauma Center. While I was at the Trauma Center, that's when I went to and did the Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine. I did the hyperbaric training program to be an internal observer inside of a dive chamber. I was going to paramedic school when 9/11 happened, which pulled me out of paramedic school, so I never got a chance to finish it because the needs of the military immediately changed in the blink of an eye. So I finished out my time at Fort Sam Houston, and then in 2002, right at 2 years, I was reassigned to Baumholder, Germany, to 1/6 Infantry. Initially, like I said, in the scout platoon. Then I became promotable and became a sergeant, at which time I was pulled into being a team leader. During that whole time we were doing train up, we knew something was going on. When I was moving overseas to Germany, I had some friends that were in that unit that I was actually stationed in Texas with. And I knew when we got there, or when I was en route there, we were supposed to go to Bosnia like 6 months after we got there. So we already had a deployment on the hook to go to Bosnia. And when I got on the ground, within about a week, like all Bosnia deployments were canceled. And that's kind of when we knew something was happening. Our op tempo was changing. Our training tempo was changing. So then it became a train up and a preparation for something that wasn't fully clarified to us until the ground war started, beginning of March, first week of March of 2003. We all of a sudden had a last minute certification gunnery. A lot of people don't know, before combat teams go into combat, you have to certify. You have to prove that you can do your job as a combined maneuver unit. So we were in Grafenwehr, Germany, doing a last minute gunnery and certification when the ground war started. And that's when we kind of knew that that's where we were going. So we spent 30 days in Grafenwehr. Our medical team was the first team on the ground. So our division commander, General Dempsey at the time, who ended up being the chairman of Joint Chiefs, he was like, "Hey, you guys did a great job getting set up. You guys are the first one here." So we got to cover 30 days of gunnery, which was 30 days away from your family before we were getting ready to leave. So we left Germany it was like the 3rd or 4th week of April of 2003. We staged in Kuwait, at Camp New Jersey, Kuwait, out in the desert for, took us about 2 weeks for our vehicles to come over on boat and for us to consolidate and get ready to move. And then I think it was the 8th or 9th of May, we crossed the border into Iraq. The Marines and 3rd Infantry Division were the first wave. They were already up in Baghdad. So we were that second wave. They actually rolled everything all the way up there. We did a fast move on the highways up to Baghdad, where they loaded our vehicles on the back of big tractor trailers, right? Tactical tractor trailers called HETs. And they ran us on the back of tractor trailers in our vehicles, which is the weirdest thing.
That's kind of crazy.
We're in, so we were a mechanized infantry unit. So my ambulance was an M113 armor personnel carrier that the insides of it was converted to being an ambulance that had 4 litter sections in it, so I could hold 4 patients technically. So we rolled on the back of these tractor trailers essentially to the outskirts of Baghdad. Once we got to the outskirts and that took 2.5 days, just almost driving nonstop. And we rolled into nothing major along the way. It was very surreal. It's like we're in Iraq, we're invading this country. It was weird. Like everyone on the side of the road, half of them were waving, half of them were throwing rocks. The kids were happy to see us. So our first exposure into combat was weird because we're in combat and then like nothing's happening, right? We would stop for IED route clearance. We'd just be sitting in the back of the track for an hour and then we'd start moving again. So anyway, a couple days later, we get to the outside of Baghdad and we drop our vehicles and we roll into Baghdad. Our first camp was kind of a hasty fob, was in a Republican Guard headquarters. And then we ended up setting up our task force. Our brigade headquarters was in Saddam's palace. And then if you, from the road looking at Saddam's palace, I think it was Uday had 7 houses to the left. Our battalion task force set up in those. And then Kusay had 7 houses to the right, and that was a special operations compound over there. So we were right off the Tigris River at Saddam's palace, on the palace grounds. So it was, when we first got there, it was kind of the Wild West. We patrolled with soft side Humvees. We took the doors off. We were just kind of rolling around like John Wayne. I can't remember how long we were there. We were doing a patrol one night, probably our second week there. We were doing hasty traffic control points there. So there was a curfew, so we were kind of cops, kind of locking the city down. So we would roll up with a squad or 2 of our infantry guys, and we would set up a traffic control point and search people looking for fighting age males or people moving weapons. Or I know now what we were doing. We were just kind of out there like, oh, we're just going to rip people out of cars, right, and search people tonight. It was probably our third or fourth night of doing that. And some guy came around the corner and just fired off a couple pop shots from an AK, not really at us, I don't think. I think they popped on the ground 100 yards in front of us. That was the first time we took fire. And we were just like, oh, shit just got real. Like, we just got shot at. And now looking back at the different levels of aggression, of combat that I saw later on in that deployment and then in Afghanistan, I don't think he was shooting at us. He was just harassing us, right?
Gotcha.
But at that time, it was like, oh crap.
It's the first time, right?
First time.
Yeah.
Right? So that made it real quick. And then that deployment lasted 15 months. We were gone 15 straight months. We were in the Karada. We patrolled the Karada district of Baghdad, downtown. It was Marketplace and Bath Party neighborhoods. And then we got extended for 4 months down in Iskandaria, Al-Hazwa, and Musaib at a power factory where we had a fob called Fob Chosen down there. We patrolled out of there. The last 4 months was worse than the first 12 months combined. Wow. Those communities, Iskandaria, Hazwa, and Musaib, they've provided the factory workers to an arms and ammunition factory. So the war essentially put 3 cities of bomb makers
Wow.
out of business, out of work, but they knew where they hid everything. So we were basically going out patrolling to IED contact. We were either getting harassed by mortar fire or rolling into IEDs a couple times a week. Wow. So.
Did you see a lot of, or when did you see, start seeing your first, when you had to be a medic? I mean, when you were having these people taking fire or these IEDs or whatever that wounded people. Did you have much of that in Iraq?
We did in those last 4 months.
Okay.
The first year, most of what I saw was, so New Year's Eve, 2003, 2004, the restaurant that got blown up on New Year's Eve, I was the senior medic on that response because that was in our sector in Karada. That was probably the first major IED hit that we took in our sector. And again, it wasn't targeting us. It was targeting actually the journalists. The foreign press used to frequent the hotel across the street and that restaurant. So that was kind of the target there. And that was a mass casualty. We were trying to excavate bodies in the rubble of the restaurant, looking just for anybody to work on. And then doing casualty sweeps in the adjacent buildings. It's weird when IEDs would go off. Like we would roll out, and anybody that was worth working on, the Iraqi EMS, they would just throw them in the back of a truck and drive them to a hospital. So by the time we actually got there and consolidated, and I started trying to set up a casualty collection point and start going through my rules of engagement of medicine, like there was nobody to work on. So we were just fishing bodies at that point.
Wow.
And then St. Patty's Day in 2004, the Mount Lebanon hotel bombing. I think CIA and MI6 were the target on that one. That was that car bomb just ripped the face off of that hotel. And so we were, again, kind of looking for anything to work on. Then we ended up doing a PR, a personnel recovery. There was a British agent that was missing. So we ended up spending, I think, maybe about 14 hours driving hospital to hospital, morgue to morgue, looking for, like we had physical description and then a dossier packet on him. We knew what his tattoos were and where they were, pictures of his tattoos. So we were looking to recover this British agent, and we finally found the hospital that he was at, and his team had located him an hour before we did and had already recovered him. So then once we got down to Iskandaria, probably my most gruesome. I had a lot of difficult days in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was just different fighting.
Right.
Like in Afghanistan, it was they would stay and fight us toe to toe. Like we were in anything from 10 to 15 to 3-hour gunfights in Afghanistan. Iraq, they just blew us up. They just either dropped mortars on us or the road blew up in front of us. The first day that we patrolled in Iskandariya, one of our patrols from Bravo Company actually got hit. The gunner almost lost his arm, but my junior medic that was assigned to that platoon, I won't mention his name because I know he dealt with it very difficultly afterwards, but not only saved the guy's life, but his arm was able to get fully reattached and have partial functionality. Amazing work that day. As we were rolling out to respond to his QRF, his backup to that incident, just down the road, probably about 3 miles, there was a bus of children that rolled over a pressure plate IED and blew up. So we diverted and went to work on that. And it was literally just children's body parts. Trying to find anything to work on. In their chaperone, this male, I see his face. This guy was still alive. Like below his knees, everything looked like mashed potatoes. We think he was sitting near the detonation point. I thought he was dead at first, and then he started groaning. Like really jagged, horrid blast amputations below the knees, probably from where his legs were sitting. One of his femurs was shattered. The other femur had kind of a clean break. He had eviscerated organs, so his bowels were hanging out. He had 5 sucking chest wounds.
And he was still alive.
And he's still alive.
Crazy.
Like, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Wow.
How do you go, like, what's the first step when you see something like that as a medic?
It's, so first of all, at that point, a little bit of emotion and stuff took over. Like I wanted to save something. When I'm fishing children's body parts, you get to a point emotionally, I wanted to save something.
For sure.
And there were no kids left to work on. So this guy he got all my attention. So you start with, tourniquet the legs, control bleeding. Then airway, he had airway compromise, so I had to work on 5 sucking chest wounds, and then his bowel evisceration was kind of the last thing. You just kind of tape and hold those in place. And every time he'd kind of fade out, I'd flick his eyelid, and he would kind of wander back and start groaning and make good eye contact with me. And I was like, all right, let's stick this out, right? So we got him loaded up in the back of my ambulance, and took us a couple minutes to get a security detail to escort me, because I couldn't roll alone, to Iskandariya Hospital. And then he finally succumbed to his injuries in the back of the ambulance as we were rolling. So I'd worked on this guy probably for 40 minutes. The back of my vehicle is probably 120 degrees. I'm in full kit, right? And so I was so mad about the event. I was so mad about everything that happened. Literally when I realized he had succumbed to his injuries, I just punched him in the face.
Wow.
So, and then we get to the hospital, and there was a little bit of a scuffle with me and the administrators of the people at the hospital, because I felt they should be doing more.
Yeah.
That's just the difference between American medicine, tactical medicine, and their medicine, right? So we got there. First of all, they didn't want to let us in. They had 3 guards with the hospital compound doors, the gates shut. So I may have drawn my weapon on their guards, and they opened the gate. And then we rolled in, and they basically just pulled this guy out of the back of the truck and threw him on a pile of other dead people.
Wow.
And then that was all in all about 2 hours. And the worst part about it was just children. I mean, the most innocent of people stuck in a combat zone. I don't even know where they were going, but they rolled over an ID, and so yeah, you kind of get taken into this. I at least got taken into the moment where I had to find something to try to work on, and then from there, it was more IEDs. Our patrol got hit. The vehicle in front of me that actually had our company commander in it got blown up. Everyone lived. Like the overpressure of the IED rocked me pretty hard. I had some shrapnel and secondary missiles, my body armor. Well, I love you guys so much. Body armor works. I know it does. There was just a lot of that. Just patrol to contact. A couple funny events that happened, but then got back from that deployment, finished out my time in Germany, did some staff time in New Jersey at Fort Monmouth, and that's when I did the federal SWAT program, and then I augmented a local SWAT team through a mutual support agreement as a tactical medic. Did that for 2 years, and then went to 3rd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, Big Red 1, 6th Squadron, 4th Cavalry Regiment, where I was the platoon sergeant, and we did a 12-month deployment to Afghanistan.
Yeah, that was Afghanistan, which was the next thing I wanted to ask you about. I know you wear the bracelet there, and maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have, unfortunately, a collection of these, but the one I wear the most is for Captain Rob Yeska's. For those that don't know that or about the veterans, if you see the veterans wearing an honor bracelet, it's usually someone who's very close to us, one of our friends. So Rob Yeska's was one of my friends. He was our Blackfoot troop commander. He was kind of, part of his story is chronicled actually in the movie The Outpost.
Right.
The book does a better job. In the movie, they have Rob dying on the mountain at that event, and that's not really
Actually,
what happened. For Hollywood, whatever, they've got to condense timelines down. So Rob got blown up on October 28th, 2008. He stepped on an IED on the bridge, but he didn't die on the mountain that day. I actually conducted a non-standard CASEVAC. We commandeered a CH-47 Chinook and got 2 Black Hawk. I think they were Black Hawks. We had 2 gunships escort us because 47s couldn't fly alone. I went up, conducted the rescue, and we worked on them. Tom Nelson, our S3, and then Mandy Kuda, our squadron surgeon, the 3 of us flew up, got him. The team on the ground, our PA, Captain Stephen Brewer, did an amazing job. The senior medic up there, George Scheffler, did an amazing job. They kept him stable and controlled his injuries as best as they could. We flew up and got him an airway in the back of the helicopter, reestablished his IVs, attended to his the other interventions, the tourniquets and stuff. Luckily, at our main FOB, where our squadron headquarters was at, we had part of a forward surgical team. So there were general surgeons and trauma surgeons there, so he was able to get very rapid surgical intervention, and then made it his way back to Walter Reed, and then he finally passed from his injuries at Walter Reed on December 1st. But we got him home to say goodbye to his wife and daughters. So,
and you were at Fort in Afghanistan, the one the book recognizes.
So yeah, the one they recognize in the book that they talk about is Cop Keating. It's Combat Outpost Keating.
Yep.
That's where Rob was at. I was actually further north at Libert, Outpost Libert, for 90 days, and then I came back and assumed my roles again as platoon sergeant.
You were back how long before Keating? I mean, right before Keating happened, right? You came back.
We flew out of Libert, I think it was October 11th, and then Keating happened on the 28th, and it was either right before or right after the Suno Valley ambush happened. That was a major event, which ended up leading to an air assault to go back in and kind of retake Suno Valley. But Afghanistan was mostly gunfighting, and I'll give it to them. The Taliban, they would stay and fight you. They would have no problem staying and doing a gunfight with you. So,
I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about, I think it was 2003 or 4, sitting in the back of that van, and it's like 100-something degrees with your kit on. I want to know what your body armor would have been like back then. Was that a heavy kit? What kind of rifle? Did you have rifle protection?
It was the IOTV. I can't remember what IOTV stands for. It was weird because we wore the desert camouflage, the DCUs, and they sent us woodland armor. Didn't matter, right? So it had soft armor in it, and then we had sappy plates, front and back, and then we had side plates.
What do you think the weight of that was?
Oh God, it had to.
A lot heavier than nowadays.
Yeah, oh yeah, way heavier than nowadays. Probably 20 pounds ish. When 9/11 happened and I was at Fort Sam, I was on the part of our reaction team, part with the MPs. I was one of their medics, and we got issued Ranger body armor, and that stuff was just steel plates and in
Wow.
in a carrier, and it was heavy as sin and uncomfortable as all get out. And so what we had in Iraq was a step up. Ironically, I mentioned before that first night that we got shot at, like we very arrogantly had no fear when we got there because of the roll up, right? I mean, we didn't get contacted with anything. So a lot of us, because they had soft armor in it, patrolled without plates. And so we were downtown when that guy took those pop shots at us. Most of us didn't have plates in. And as soon as I couldn't get back to the camp fast
Quick enough,
Like,
yeah.
as soon as
Put
we
that
got
stuff
back,
in,
I
man.
loaded plates back in, and I was like, I'll never do that again.
I've had stories. Matter of fact, we had one just recently at one of the shows we were at, where I had a guy that I don't know what his role was, on his sergeant or whatever, but he was in command, and he said he was with the guys. They got shrapnel, and one of his guys, his radio caught the shrapnel. He said after that, he said all the guys wear side plates.
Oh, absolutely.
You're all wearing side plates.
We had a guy in Afghanistan when we were at Libert. The bipod of his 240 got shot, creating secondary projectiles, and the side plate caught that. It ripped across his hand and then went
Wow.
into his side plates. So I had to work on his hand, but I mean, right on this,
Oh,
right.
man.
I mean, it could have like totally
Gutted
damaged
him.
his liver, and I could have had a bleed that was difficult to control. And Libert was difficult to get medevacs to, because usually when they hit us, I mean, they would hit us from a couple different sides, usually very coordinated, complex attacks, small arms fire and RPGs. They got a Dishka 51 caliber crew serve gun up there, and they started shooting into the camp with that. So it was medevac was a pretty long way away, and then because of the mountain terrain, they couldn't really come in hot. Everyone, the movies always portray, oh, coming in hot, right? And I know that there's a lot of pilots that have risked their lives and their crew and done amazing things. That's not always the norm, right? And it's not the best thing for them to do that either. Very limited resources, and you don't need them getting shot off the side of a mountain.
Right.
So yeah, but I've seen a side plate totally protect somebody.
So you're a fan of side
work.
plates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I also think of the helmets, like the helmets we sell, helmets that the military has. I think of those as being more shrapnel based rather than an actual firearm round.
Yeah, we had a Marine Corps colonel. I think we were on the Mitches or the ACHs.
Right.
That Suno Valley ambush. We had a Marine Corps lieutenant colonel. $1 million shot directly through the helmet.
Yeah.
My medic on the ground that day did an amazing job with him. Got him back, evacuated him back again. Surgical team working on him almost immediately, and he fully survived. But it was a long road to recovery. And the helmet, admittedly probably saved his life. It just slowed it down so it couldn't do terminal damage. But it was.
Did it ricochet off, or did it?
It punched.
The bullet went in.
It penetrated. Yeah.
So it end up in his skull, or
Yeah.
what? Wow! And you were able to save him.
My medic on the ground did.
Wow!
amazing work. And then the doctors in our surgical team.
Wow.
Right. So just continuity of care. That's I don't think there's the one thing I don't think a lot of folks understand is the dynamic level of medicine that we put on the side of a mountain on a battlefield. Like we have, every combat medic is at least an EMT. And really with the military training, they're all like the EMT advanced or EMT intermediate. Some of us paramedic level. So that's the basic medic, right? And then in your aid stations, you have typically 2 trauma teams, and then like we have with PAs and doctors supplementing and supervising that. And then, we're really good at putting these complements of forward surgical teams in tents. So in my aid station in Afghanistan, which outside of the village in Iraq, we had my team, we had a surgical team, and they had one full OR with a ventilator,
Wow.
full capability for damage control, trauma resuscitation surgery. In my aid station, we could handle major traumas, non-surgical major traumas. I had an x-ray, I had ultrasound, I had an ISTAT blood analyzer so we could do trauma labs. I could do a CBC, ChemSat, I could do all of that in the tent on the side of the mountain.
Wow.
Full pharmacologic capability for anesthesia. And then when you start adding, the air medical evacuation, standard and non-standard capabilities of Blackhawks and Chinooks, and then what we had at Bagram Airfield, which was a full-on hospital. And then you go echelon beyond that, where you have the C9 Nightingale fixed wing that flies them back to Landstuhl. I mean, that was one of the biggest pride points in my whole career, was understanding we do amazing
How
things that people
advanced.
don't know how advanced a team of 25 guys with backpacks,
That's awesome.
what you're capable of doing. And then when you augment that with those other echelons of care to have a full continuity of care across the battlefield.
Getting them to you and then getting them wherever they need to go after you've touched them. And
Yeah, if we didn't learn the lessons that we did in combat medicine in Vietnam, if we were still practicing medicine like they were in Vietnam, the death tolls from Iraq and Afghanistan would be astronomical.
Wow.
The military is really good at lessons learned, and taking and adapting to that. Like when I went to combat medic school in '94, I was trained that a tourniquet was a last device. Like they made us scared to death. Like, you better be willing to tell his family why you cut his leg off if you're going to apply that tourniquet. I mean, it was a last course of intervention and treatment, and we have done a couple of gear reviews and stuff together now where we talk about tourniquets, and the average person has them available to them, and it's a first line defense against hemorrhage.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that all comes from, sorry for the civilian medicine's great too, but trauma really gets its teeth cut in combat, and advances in trauma treatment really come out of the military and what we do in combat.
I know one of the things we talked about in the video, one of the videos we did with you earlier, you talked about how civilians can get there, can get to the scene, and that's a bad thing sometimes because they don't know what they're doing. How did that relate to, say, Iraq or Afghanistan, local people? Did you see the local hospitals, were they well versed in the medic side, or were you like, oh no, I hope they don't get to them because they're just going to mess things up, or were they well versed?
No, their version of street level medicine or
Somebody's
point
down.
of injury care.
Right.
Literally, they threw him in the back of a truck.
Wow.
And drove him to the hospital. We may have taken over a hospital at gunpoint at one time because of how bad things were. There was a guy, we did static security outside of the hospital at night, and a guy presented in cardiac arrest. His family came and dropped him off, but they closed the hospital. Like, it was shut down. But they saw the Red Cross on our vehicle, and they kind of threw him over to us, and we're like, you got to do something to help him. And so while part of the team starts doing resuscitation on the guy, the other part of the team, we went over and we started beating on the door. We're like, hey, open the effing door. We need your equipment. We need, combat medics don't have defibrillators in our ambulances. Generally do resuscitative medicine like that in a firefight. So that's not what we're equipped with, but we knew they had it inside because we'd been in the hospital. So basically their administrator came down and was like, we're closed. And we were like, no, you're not. Right? And he was convinced to open the door, and we were able to get the guy in. I still think the guy passed, but we kind of made our point that you're going to be a part of the solution here, not part of the problem.
Right.
And that was early '03, and things got better, but it wasn't uncommon for us to find medics. If we were there to pick somebody up, a lot of times, if I was in an Iraqi hospital, it was because I was there to find an insurgent that we knew got injured. They took him to the hospital. So I was there to make sure he was stable and then take him.
Extract.
And take him back so we could process him. So.
All right. I want to get into what your thoughts are on but I don't want to stop with necessarily your career and stuff, but I do at some point want to ask what your thoughts are on the new Sub Zero. I know it's your first look at that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to go to that or or continue on with. Do you have any more that you want to talk about on your side of your
I'm
career? You want to continue with that?
No, we can talk toys. I like talking toys. This could be seed planting too, right? Depending on what some of your viewers say, and if they have other questions or want to dig deeper, I'm welcome to. Or I'd be more than happy to come back. I love talking toys.
Yeah, I think we should jump into the Sub Zero.
That Sub Zero. So one of the things that got my attention a couple years ago, partially because I get tired of feeling old and fat now, being in my 50s, was I got drawn to the tactical games, right? And it's like almost like SWAT Olympics. So as a former SWAT guy and military guy, they getting out kind of, if you think for the tactical games, think of a CrossFit gym that gets blended with a firing range, right? And so you've got people doing these aggressive alpha workouts in body armor while working in pistol, rifle, or two-gun drills, ruck marching in kit, right? And then one of the as I got more interested in it, one of the things that I started exploring was, all these people seem to have kind of this streamlined, stripped down version of body armor. And I finally downloaded the rule book one day and I was like, oh, like that's a requirement of the games, is a slick plate carrier. And then there's, depending on age, masters, age category, and then gender, male or female.
Which we know there are only two.
There's only two. There's a weight criteria that it has to be, right? And so for a competitor, right, you want to have your kit to the minimum because you don't want to have to carry anything else more than what you're required to for that physical competitive advantage, right? So then I started looking at, figuring out, with all of the different, because I probably have a tough box of 5 or 6 different plate carriers. Like, well, if I wanted to train up for this, which one would be the best for that? And some of them are just too bulky in the shoulders, and no matter, or too padded, and you want to go, something kind of streamlined, because you're not doing a patrol in it. You're running and doing shooting drills. You're doing some kind of an evolution that's going to last 10 or 15 minutes, right? And then you take a break, and then you go to the next.
It's not like you're going to be wearing it for hours on end.
Yeah, totally different.
Minimalist
need.
Yeah.
Very minimalist, right? And so when you were talking to me about, Agilite's got something else coming out, I was like, ooh, I'd like to check this out. So then to see it.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you in that before you leave. We'll have to let you check it out.
That is like ideal for kind of tactical competitive events. It's everything that you need and not an ounce more. But then with the cummerbund, with the integrated pouches, it gives you that flexibility. If you do need to load out, it has that capability without necessarily having to add a bunch of other accoutrements to it.
Right.
I like the minimalist shoulders on it. The fact that you can load out placards, or it does have Molly if you do need to.
If you do need to, you can.
But if you're going light and fast, if you're going somewhere that you want to kind of conceal and have a very low profile, be kind of covert about what you're doing, I think it's perfect. If you just need something for a homesteader who's not really going to be loading out for some kind of rehearsed or not rehearsed
Right.
thing where they're going to move to you just want to have protection in your home. Again, it's everything that you need without a bunch of
Yeah.
extra bells and whistles, but it has the modularity and the capability. It's dynamic enough that it could load if you needed to. So I'm super impressed with it.
I think that's what I think that'll be a great, what's the word I want to use? You're talking about like homesteaders, people like that. I think that's a great community that this will be great with, because we talk to so many people at shows and things that, that they're buying guns. They got guns. They got thousands of rounds of ammo, tens of guns, and I say, if you think you're going to have to be shooting at somebody because you have all that, apparently that's a thought in the back of your mind,
Right.
that you might have to do that. They're probably going to be shooting back. And so to have something that's available to throw on, like you said, if you're not planning on going here to here to here, you don't have a plan, but you need something.
Right.
I think with the price point this is going to be at,
Yep.
it's going to be very affordable for everybody. And then throw a couple plates in there. I think it's really good.
I mean, if you think of, there's a concept that a lot of people, they're very familiar with the bug out concept,
Right.
People really need to get comfortable with the bug in concept.
That is
right?
correct,
And
100%.
if you're bugging in, you can stage magazines and what you need to defend your property appropriately to where you can be a little bit faster and lighter in maneuvering through your property. And then for the tactical athlete, if you're clearing a medium wall or a high wall, or doing a low crawl under a net, or you're climbing a rope, because Tactical Games loves to have a rope event, I mean, that gives you something that's not going to create all these snag hazards, right? To where you can dominate and defeat these obstacles relatively quickly. So yeah, I love everything about it.
And from the tactical game side standpoint, we had talked about this when I told you it was coming out, and we're actually going to make sure that our plates, our weight plates, are going to be 12 pounds for the ladies, 15 pounds for the guys. You and I put this one on the scale over here a while ago. It's 15 pounds, 5 ounces.
Right.
We're going to figure out where we can trim a little bit, even more, to where we can have that package where if people want to order that package for tactical games, we're going to have it down to 12 pounds, as close to 12 even, as close to 15 even as we can.
Perfect. And like in some of the first aid things that we did together a little bit ago, and you think about tools in your toolbox, right? Professional warfighters, professional operators, they don't necessarily have just one.
Right.
They don't have one plate carrier. Things are mission dependent.
Right.
If sometimes those guys get put on diplomatic security, so they're not carrying a full loadout. They need something that is low profile, concealable.
Right.
And then they might need something more like K-19 or K-0, something that's a little bit bigger, bulkier, because it's a more deliberate, direct action or presence of whatever they're doing. So it's just another tool in the toolbox, depending on what people's needs are. And I think it's great to see Agilite kind of expand into more robust offerings that kind of hit the full-fledged battle offering, and then the light fighter as well. I'm not surprised. Just another great product.
I think from Agilite's background, they started with making combat-oriented gear, and now they're trying to bring it into more of a consumer market. Not everybody needs a combat plate carrier. Let's be honest. I mean, a lot of people just want to get a little plate carrier and throw it beside their bed, and I think that's the perfect plate carrier for it.
I would agree.
So.
Yeah. Very good. Are we going to get in the Q&A?
Yeah, we got a couple comments that we want to go over here and just talk about. So we got Kenneth Miller. He said he just picked up a battle belt and he recently subbed, so thank you so much. He said he would love to see some different belt setups from you guys. So that was on your belt setup video.
Okay.
So, he's already seen your belt setup, but I think Dave here brought his
conveniently
belt
Doc's
setup.
got his, and
I do.
I've got mine here too.
So the system, the setup is the same as my last belt system that I used to run until I saw this belt, and I think you saw me immediately start.
When you first saw it,
Upgrading.
you knew you wanted it.
I knew I wanted it for a few reasons, and I've already done a review on it. But so mine is kind of balanced for a day at the range for me. So across the front, I have a double pistol mag on each side. So that gives me 4 magazines for my handgun. Working around my right hip, Safariland holster with True North Concepts drop extension with a thigh rig to strap it down on my thigh. If I'm not moving, if I'm not running obstacles, and this isn't really going to be a trip hazard, I'm really just kind of doing some holster work or whatever, it's not uncommon that I'll just strap it up like that and not have to have it on my thigh. So working around to the back, it's kind of balanced. I've got 2 single AR pouches, and then I've got my IFAK, and then this is
Blue Force gear.
Blue Force gear, that dump pouch, which is, I think, one of the coolest things ever. It's so lightweight yet durable, and dump pouches can be used for a bunch of different things. And then, the magnetic system is amazing. I've done a couple of different gun classes the last couple weekends, and this always just clips right where I need to do it. Lace it around, click up front, and I'm ready to go. What I have found too is the underbelt, the inner belt with this, I wear almost every single day.
Yep.
Because this material,
yep.
This hard
Composite. It's a
composite material
yep.
up front is the perfect platform to put my Penix rig on.
Right.
So I have a very stable, deliberate platform for my EDC, but then when I want to go to the range, I can drop that off, and without having to really adjust much, I just slap this on and I'm ready to start knocking targets. So that's and I have a belt hanger. Worst case scenario, it's got my blood type embroidered in it. So, I mean, that's a bad day at the range, right? But it's balanced. I keep that so it fits easy and it doesn't tug and pull on
I like that.
one hip or another necessarily. My back's kind of jacked up from some of the IED work and things from falling off mountains in Afghanistan. So I like to keep things kind of
Evenly
neutral
balanced.
on my body. So this is what my last gun belt, I ran that like this, and I found that I really like that. It sits well on my body. I can work the gun really good, and it gives me just about everything I need for running a couple different sequences of fire on the range and have a good day at the range. So, yeah.
What gloves you rocking here?
What are these? These are mechanics.
Is that an intentional glove for you? Like, do you run that glove specifically for a reason, or is that just a generic glove that you enjoy?
No, I do like the mechanics gloves. I ran them on deployment. I'm trying to think the ones I had last that I kept them because I'll never buy them again. I want to make sure that I don't ever buy them. I will intentionally not say who that is, and then unintentionally, I can't remember at this point. Mechanics are good. The trigger fingers actually wore out, and then they snagged, and I got a cut in them across the back.
Which is the impact. That's why you have the impact.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, mechanics are good. I can't remember. There's a couple other ones that I like to run. There's one that I know I just won't run again because they just didn't last. But yeah, mechanics they're kind of a go-to. I'm not exclusive to them, but they run a good product. So
For sure.
And that's what, Agilite has their version of the impact gloves, which has the three-finger cutout for the dexterity.
Yeah.
And then the extra padding and then padding on the back, which is the impact glove in general. But yeah, great glove, great.
one of the other ones is like Delta Pig or Delta Hog, something like that. They're
Pig, I think. Pig.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are
I've heard
good.
of
I've run
those.
those once
Yeah.
or twice. They're pretty good. So, but yeah, that's what I run.
Yeah, and that, very similar on my side. I've just got the pistol mags canted on the left side, nothing on the right.
Do you find that really gives you an advantage on the draw?
I think the canting is nice.
Okay.
Talking about the canting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it slides out instead of coming straight up. A little cant on it is nice to pull out. So, that's that. And then the 5.56 mag here, a little general purpose pouch for whatever you want to put in there. And then, of course, IFAC in the center of the back, like you. And then the dump pouch on the back right. I'm right-handed. I kind of like the dump pouch being back here on the right. So, and then if I have the gloves, I just hang the gloves off of the D-ring there. That's not technically not rated. That D-ring's not rated for taking up a helicopter or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not technically rated for that. So, but nice hanger for whatever.
Yep.
Sweet. I don't personally have a belt setup, so maybe we need to work on that. But I can't show you my belt setup because I don't personally have one. So maybe these guys will talk me into it. But the last comment here I wanted to talk about, in the previous episode, we were talking about being prepared and stuff. And this comment was just talking about how, well, first of all, he said before, guns, ammo, armor, which are great things, he thinks hunting, crafting, and trapping are some of the most important skills. And then a good quality knife is his first recommendation. So I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on, do you think a knife is something you should consider as like a first thing in your kit? What would be the benefit to having a knife over a gun? Do you think you should have a gun first?
Well, I understand I think I understand the logic where he's coming from. If you're in a survival situation, let's go worst case scenario, right? Total societal collapse, right? If you're using your gun every day, like you failed at prepping.
That's fair.
Okay. If you're using a knife every day, you could be skinning an animal. You could be whittling wood to make a spear. I mean, there's way more active uses of why you would need a knife.
Right.
Or 4 or 8.
Right.
Right. Multiple knives because you have
knives.
more than one tool in your toolbox.
Right.
Like if we're in a societal collapse and you're in gunfights every day, you should rethink your decisions, right? I honestly think that he has a great point that a knife or multiple is something that you should consider. Like people prepare food, but you're going to supplement that hopefully with hunting and fishing, right? I mean, if you're a hunter-gatherer, you should be hunting and gathering, right? You are
don't
going
need
to
a gun to hunt, right? You could create a bow and arrow with a knife
Right.
and some wood, and
Fishing really sucks with guns, right? I mean, you don't, right? So, but you got to think when you're fishing, you need a knife, a good fillet knife, to be able to work that
Right.
fish and clean it appropriately.
Right.
You're not going to use that knife to gut a deer and to
Right.
clean a deer.
Correct.
Right. So knives, he's got an amazing point. Knives need to be something that's considered and not just one. And wives, or even some husbands, I'm sorry to tell you, you need a few of them. I probably have 15 to 20 different knives for cleaning animals, cleaning fish, utility work.
PDC.
Yeah, I mean, there's and your good knives for cleaning animals. You don't want to use those for utility work.
Right.
You get stuff that is proprietary to a use or to a purpose, and you should try to keep them for that. So that was a great question. He's spot on. Yeah, knives need to be, if not a first consideration, a very early consideration, in my opinion.
I feel lost without my knife. I mean, I carry a knife every day.
Yeah.
There's something in this right pocket all the time.
Yeah.
I feel it's like not having my cell phone.
Yep.
I think if I was stranded on an island, I would want a knife as my first item.
Yep.
I think that's
If you're stranded on an island and you got a gun and not a knife, who are you getting in a gunfight with?
exactly.
Nobody.
I mean,
you're stranded.
you could make a
Also,
point that you could kill some animals, but
Also, what do they say also about 21 feet, right? 21 feet. If somebody's coming at you, they can get to you with a knife quicker than you can draw your gun and shoot, right? That's the number I've heard.
The 21 feet, the rule on 21 feet, which I can't remember the guy, the average person can cover 21 feet in about 1 to 2 seconds, right? And so that's 21 feet is your reaction time.
Right.
Right. And so when you start looking at like a defensive shooting situation,
Right.
like you want to
Having to think
need
about
to-
what you're doing, right?
right. You need to know visually roughly about what your 21-foot buffer is, because if you've got an active threat approaching you, and they get to that, they start getting close to that 21-foot line. If you're armed, you need to be ready to go to your gun. Then, if it goes hand to hand, this could go into the what if scenarios till we
All day
run out of
long,
batteries,
right.
right? If you've got retention on your holster, or if you've got a concealed gun and it's not out yet, and
Right.
you get hand to hand, if you lose control of that weapon, you're going to get Steven Seagal. It's going to get used against you, right? So having the ability to maintain active control of that, and then you've got to look at the other. There's too many different things to go into rabbit holes with on that. Knives are definitely a good personal defense tool in addition to a firearm. And let's be honest, there's certain places you can't and shouldn't carry firearms, right? There's specific rules about that in every state. And so if you still want to have something that gives you a layer or an ability for self-defense and personal protection, a knife could fill that void for you, right? So for personal defense and protection, for utility reasons, for hunting, gathering, and just, let's be honest, some of them are just cool, man. Some of
That's
them
exactly right.
yeah.
The technology, the components, the actions on them, whether they're spring assisted, front end. I mean, knives are just the generational they've been cool for years, and that's actually one of the coolest things I think my son got passed to him from his one of his grandfathers is this big knife collection. It was turned
Nice.
early on, unfortunately, when he passed my son into a really big knife guy, and
Nice.
he'll waste money on picking up knives. And then I get in trouble because I'm like, yeah, it was really cool. Mom said you shouldn't have got it, but it's cool. So
And you carry a knife on your plate carrier.
Yeah, so my plate carrier, I run a K0, and with the Warfighter cummerbund, it actually has Molly right here. So I carry the Gerber Strong Arm. Molly, the sheath Molly's on right there, and it's a perfect.
We sell a lot
Straight
of
up.
that because it's able to go on the sheath will attach to the molly.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Yeah, it's a nice knife, especially for the money.
yeah.
Going along those lines, talking to the viewers here, I don't know if you all know, but our store, we sell a ton of different knives. We have, over 300 knives now at our store?
Yeah, last time I counted a month or so ago, it was over 320.
Yeah.
We're authorized dealers for Microtech, ProTech, and Benchmade. Those are our authorized dealerships. And then we're a dealer for a lot of different other brands as well.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing we wanted to ask the community here is, would you like to see an online store for knives? Are you guys interested in knives? Would you like to go online and just order a nice knife straight from us? We ship it to you. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to look into setting something like that up for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So anything else on the Q&A?
no, I don't have anything else for you there.
Well, we want to thank Dave for being with us today. We'll plug your podcast, Bullets to Beans.
Yeah, so I do have a podcast that hasn't been updated in a while, so you can check out some old content. It's Bullets to Beans. It's on Spotify, Apple. It's on every platform. You can check out some of the blog stuff on bulletstobeans.com. We are looking at reviving that. We kind of being me, with a move from Alaska to Arizona, then Arizona to here. I'm kind of a one-man show. And then one of the next things, I don't think you even know this yet. One of the next things that'll be coming out, kind of tied to the Bullets to Beans, is actually firearms and self-defense training under the name of Trinity Defensive Solutions. We'll be opening Trinity in January.
Awesome.
And I'm a USCCA certified instructor and affiliated instructor, so we'll be working a lot of different defense and firearms training.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in today and checking out our fourth podcast. And we want to encourage you to comment below, give us some feedback, tell us what you think, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.